Hey, Liberty North, AP and Dual Credit Psychology. This is Mr. Davis, and it is on the second snow day. It is February 17th. So we've had a snow day for the last 2 days. So I did a video already over the Unit 8 motivation AP learning targets number 1 to 5. But I came up to school today to erase all this and put up our emotion learning targets. But I thought before I erased it all, maybe I should just make a second video, because the first video was at home without the notes on the board. So I'm going to go real quickly. And I know that some of you prefer it this way. So I'm going to do it this way and just go over the notes really quickly. And again, the notes are on the thumbnail. They were sent out on Twitter, and they're also in your module on Canvas. Okay. All right. So Unit 8. So we're starting Unit 8, which is motivation, emotion, and stress. We've actually already covered the stress component of the unit. Okay. AP learning targets. I'm going to go grab those real quick. Okay, so number 1, again, and these are on Canvas. Okay, so I've got them divided up in Unit 8 by specifically motivation, emotion, and then stress. Okay, which the stress one, again, we've already covered, and it's only one learning target. All right, but number 1 is identify and apply basic motivational concepts to understand the behavior of humans and other animals. And then also number 5, which can be found pretty much in all of the learning targets 1 through 5, is discuss the biological underpinnings of motivation, including needs, drives, and homeostasis. So needs, drives, we got homeostasis over here, okay? All right, so number 1, basically for the motivational theories, what you need to know is there's basically 2 categories of motivation. So anything that motivates us as humans and animals can basically be broken down into either a need or a want. Okay, or sometimes these are called biological and social. Okay, so anything that we talk about that is a motivator in your life or other people's lives, or something that motivates you, is going to be in one of these categories. Okay, so on the need side is basically our biological motives. Okay, so these are going to be our instincts. Again, evolutionary psychology. They're often called pushes. Okay, push, pull. They're intrinsic. They're internal. Okay. They're also drives. Okay, so drive theory, which we get into here, these are also called drives. Okay. On the want side, again, our social motivators, they're incentives. So like they're rewards, kind of achievements that you work for. Pulls, and they're generally extrinsic. So they're external. Okay. I should be careful in here using achievement, but so like if you want to win a trophy or get a certain GPA or earn a scholarship, those would be kind of incentives there that can pull us towards a certain behavior. These would push us towards a certain behavior. Okay. Now, just some examples here, which actually gets back to AP learning target number 3, which they just asked for examples. Self-efficacy is a big one. Self-efficacy is basically 2 things. It's very simply, it's the ability to understand yourself, to know who you really are. And then the second part of that is to learn to accept that person. Okay. We used to think that self-efficacy is great, but that was a want. Okay. It was a social motive. Maslow has it on his hierarchy, which we'll talk about here in a minute, which it's a part of self-actualization. So Maslow has always called it a need. And certain people in motivational psychology have called it a need, but now we definitely know it is a need. Okay. You are driven towards this. So again, I think you all would agree that you're driven by something internally to understand yourself, to know yourself, okay, and to accept that self. And then achievement. They call it achievement motivation, which actually might be in some research, and this is kind of a topic of a lot of research now currently, is that this might be one of the most powerful need-based, biological, drive-based motives that we have. And we used to think, again, achievement was a want. It was social, right? It's an incentive. You don't need it, but you just want it. We all want to achieve. Now, based on study, of people who retire, who actually go back to work, the Aaron Ralston story is a huge, I think it's 121 hours or 128 hours is a movie, but he's the man who went rock climbing by himself on Saturday, got his arms wedged or stuck, and was stuck up on the side of this mountain without food or water through Wednesday. And at Wednesday, he'd kind of given up on living. He had a camera with him, so he videoed his goodbyes to family. He'd come to peace with it. But then Wednesday night, he had a dream that he was a father. And that triggered something in him internally, biologically, that allowed him to do several things that were superhuman that he should not have been able to do at that point. So he then cut off his arm with a blunt pocket knife. So he sawed it off, which, would be hard for any of us to do, but especially after you've been stuck with no food or water for 4 days. And he should have bled out. Doctors don't know why he didn't bleed out. He then rappelled and climbed down 60 feet. And then he walked, I believe, 5+ miles to the nearest hospital. All of that, which should have been humanly impossible. He should have died at several junctures there on any of those activities. But he didn't. And really the only thing that he said that motivated him was his image of being a father. So his achievement of being a father. And that seemed to override all the biological motivators, okay? Which is a pretty powerful story. So he is now he's an author. Obviously, he's a motivational speaker and he has a really good story, okay? But he's a great example of that achievement motivation, moving over here to this side, okay? All right, AP Learning target number 2, compare and contrast motivational theories, including the strengths and weaknesses of each, okay? We've got 5 of them here that we're going to do. I am going to tell you that the drive reduction theory is kind of evident in a lot of these other theories, which is why I put it number 1. And I think these are in the order of your book as well. But, I think one of the strengths is that this theory seems to be kind of included in all the other 4 theories. And we definitely understand this theory a little bit more, I think. Drive reduction theory, again, which is controlled by the hypothalamus. And we've already talked about that my hypothalamus controls my homeostasis, which is my internal balance or equilibrium. So my hypothalamus is constantly monitoring my body and trying to keep me in that internal state of homeostasis, equilibrium. And if I get out of it, it motivates me, it drives me biologically to, certain behaviors that will help me get back into equilibrium. So you have a need, okay, then your hypothalamus creates a drive, and then that drives you towards the behavior to restore homeostasis. So easiest examples are thirst. So when you're thirsty, your body needs fluid, you're out of equilibrium, you're out of homeostasis. So your hypothalamus then drives you. So I have a need for fluid. It drives me to get a drink, right? Okay. If I am hungry, okay, it drives me to get food. If my body needs energy, it's signaling that it's, low on energy. If I need sleep, my body is signaling that I'm low on sleep. I need REM, I need non-REM sleep. The hypothalamus is going to drive my body or my behavior to restore that equilibrium or homeostasis, okay? Arousal theory, which is basically that we are motivated internally and we are driven. So again, it goes back to here to internally experience a certain amount of arousal, which basically means we all are kind of driven to get adrenaline rushes, okay, to have a spike of adrenaline, norepinephrine in our body. Now, the Yerkes-Dodson law says that it agrees with this arousal theory, but it also understands that some people crave too much adrenaline, too much norepinephrine, and that can be bad for you because it can lead to anxiety, and other things, jittery, stress-related issues, health concerns. Okay, now a great example of this is sensation-seeking motivation. And had we not had all the snow days, we were going to watch a video which is on Canvas about Dietrich. No. Oh, he's the Red Bull Stratus guy, but he's like the poster guy for Red Bull Stratus. He's an adrenaline junkie, Felix Baumgartner, and he is constantly out there performing these massive stunts and events, which then hold him over for months at a time, and then he's going to need to start his new one. But he jumped from the stratosphere, so he broke several world records. It's actually pretty cool to watch on the video. But he is, and what he'll tell you is, if he's not planning his next stunt event, or if he's not doing it, he just starts to feel pretty bad internally, physically. He feels physically sick because his body is not maintaining that high level of arousal or adrenaline that he needs. So his body then, he's driven to do these things. Now, when we study these adrenaline junkies, we used to think they were just kind of crazy. But now what we understand is actually an internal process. It's a biological need for adrenaline that these people have, whether they're base jumpers, bullfighters, you know, those populations have been studied. And anybody we call an adrenaline junkie. So, you know, Felix jumped from the edge of our stratosphere, broke the record for the longest free fall, the fastest free fall, and he made it and he survived. And now he's out there, you know, he said, I think that lasted him, I think he felt good about that or felt in equilibrium homeostasis for a period of 8 or 9 months. And then he's already planning his next big one, next big stunt because he has to, okay? So that's kind of a great example of arousal theory. Evolutionary theory is very easy, okay? We are driven, okay, to survive, okay? So we're going to be motivated to survive, right? Which is evolutionary psychology, which is big. So we're programmed with certain behaviors that will help us survive and increase that, okay? All right, let me move over here. All right, so then we have, okay, so theory number 4 is Maslow's hierarchy of needs, okay? Let me move this closer. Okay, so Maslow, which again should already be in your notebooks. He is, again, we put him in there in chapter 1 for historical figure. So some people consider him the father of humanistic psychology. But Maslow's hierarchy of needs, certain people just live by this. We call them Maslowian disciples. I don't know if you guys probably don't remember Mr. Clark, but he taught world history, helped us open the building here, an AP world history. But he was a Maslowian guy, and him and I always had great conversations. But he believed everything could come down to this theory of motivation here. So Maslow, the first thing you need to know, it's Maslow's hierarchy of needs, not Maslow's hierarchy of wants. Okay, and in the past, that has been a huge debate. In psychology and other sciences, some people believed early on that these are not all needs, these are wants. But Maslow argued to his grave that these are all needs and that we're all driven, again, get back to the drive reduction theory, we're all driven to obtain each of these needs. And that we basically, it's like a building block. We have to satisfy these basic needs first before we can get to the ultimate need, which is self-actualization, which includes self-efficacy. So the need to know yourself and to appreciate yourself and accept who you are, okay? So biological needs, okay, which are the basic needs like food, hunger, drink, shelter. We have safety needs, okay, which we have a drive to feel safe in our environments. We have a need for love and belongingness. So again, Maslow said we're social animals, okay? And we have a need for esteem, okay, which is understanding of ourselves, to feel competent, positive, you know, to feel like we can attain something. And then we have self-actualization, which is fulfilling your own unique potential. So Maslow said that in our lives, we are constantly driven towards obtaining self-actualization. According to Maslow, only about 2% of the population obtain this and keep it. Most of us will be at a various level here. Again, that's just Maslow and his theory. But once if we ever obtain self-actualization, then we spend the rest of our lives trying to keep it, because you can lose it in a day. You can lose it very quickly. So, you know, there's all kinds of stories of people who are maybe prominent figures in history or leaders, musicians, entertainment, you know, who were at the pinnacle, but then dropped all the way down to where they didn't feel safe. And then maybe they didn't even have their basic needs met. Okay. Now, culture definitely influences this. Maslow did say that. You know, obviously, if you look at our culture, we kind of already have these two kind of just naturally fulfilled for us. So we're kind of naturally going to be working on these up here. If you go to other countries, third world countries, you know, they don't have this provided and they don't have these provided. So, you know, they might be motivated just simply by a meal, one meal a day. Okay. So, but again, these are needs. Biological, and then again, this would get back to the drive reduction theory. As Maslow said, we're driven for these, okay? Number 5 is cognitive dissonance theory, which is very popular in psychology because it actually can lead to a lot of psychological issues and unhealthy processes. So if you go into therapy or if you're in a clinical setting, you'll deal with this. But cognitive dissonance is basically when my beliefs do not match my actions. So this is an internal state. It's a thought process And it's basically, it's like being in internal conflict. It's very uncomfortable. It doesn't feel very well, and it's very unhealthy. And we get into this state whenever we come into a situation where beliefs do not match our actions, okay? And again, this is a huge psychological problem. So what we're motivated to do is get out of this state. We don't like the state of equilibrium. Again, some people say it's biological, that you're not in homeostasis, and so you're driven to get out of here. Well, you have two choices: change your beliefs or change your actions, okay? In our society and our culture, we generally change our beliefs, okay? Because it's easier than changing our actions. So I think an example that I used in the other video was smoking. If I believe that smoking is bad for me and could eventually kill me, but I smoke, I'm in a state of cognitive dissonance. I have to work that out mentally. And the best way is obviously to stop smoking or vaping. Okay. But if I can't do that, or I struggle to do that, I'm just going to change my beliefs or my attitude about smoking and vaping. I'm going to rationalize, why I can keep doing it. I'm going to come up with certain type of coping methods because I still want to do it, so on and so forth. Okay. So in psychology, we see this one quite a bit in the therapy clinical side. Okay. AP learning target number 3. Which is describe classic research findings in specific motivations. Okay, so basically here they just want examples. The book talks about eating, okay, which is the more we study eating, the more we know it's a biological need, all right? It's controlled by that hypothalamus. Social, which again, we're social animals, so we are driven towards social behaviors. Again, getting back here to Maslow's esteem and loving belongingness, okay? Some people argue these are out of order, that I have to learn to love myself first, know who I am, and then I can do relationships, okay? But we are social animals. We're driven. We also, this arousal theory in there. Okay, we've talked about examples of sensation-seeking motivation, cognitive dissonance here, okay? And then learning target number 4 is historical individuals. So you have William James, which should already be in your AP notebook, okay, because he's the father of American psychology. But William James did, his actually name is on a emotion theory that we'll study next. So you have William James, who did several research and theories in motivation and emotion. Alfred Kinsey, which will probably be the one that most of you maybe don't recognize in here, but is very famous for motivational and emotional theory. Abraham Maslow, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. He's also considered the father, by some, the father of humanistic psychology, so we should already have him. Actually, Stanley Schachter is a key figure in emotional theory. So he developed the 2-factor theory of emotion, which will be on the next video. And then Hans Selye, which we've already talked about, who's Dr. Stress, who was the pioneering researcher in stress and the physical symptoms of stress and why it attacks and wears down our body. Okay. All right. So these are all in your book as well. So you can look them up, but those are the individual names that you need to have in your AP notebook. Okay. All right, so yeah, this one's a lot shorter than the one at home. So that's motivation. That's AP learning targets 1 to 5. All right, and so this is kind of going to be the only means in which you get the lesson, and then we're going to move on to emotion. Hopefully tomorrow, if we have school, Thursday and Friday. Okay. All right. Enjoy your last snow day of the year, hopefully.